everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the knee-slapping K-pop podcast. I am Kayla, and today I am joined with Sammi.
Woo!
And because we because we had to watch every male survival show this year, we have also watched Fantasy Boys, and the question I have for us was, why did we do this?
Why did we do this?
Why?
We thoroughly had a bad time every episode.
Because actually, what the fuck was this entire show? Like, actually, what did we spent so much time on this show, and it's like, and for what? Why did we do this?
If y'all have heard our 3 to almost 4 hour long Boys Planet episode, you will hear us credit that show as one of the best pieces of reality. Not 100% like, in terms of crafting, in terms of production, in terms of
storytelling, everything about it is
storytelling,
fantastic.
all of the metatextual things about reality TV. Boys Planet is one of the best pieces of reality TV I have consumed, whether it be K-pop survival or like American reality TV. All of the above, it's one of the best pieces of reality TV I've ever seen. This show is genuinely one of the worst pieces of reality TV I have ever seen.
Like the most trashiest, like the absolute garbage trashy show I've ever seen. Like, it's awful.
But also, it doesn't have enough personality to be trashy. It just feels like they were running through a show. Like, it felt like they had so much stuff that they wanted to put in that they just, like, jammed it in. But also that they decided to not show any personality. Decided to not show any kind of character growth or development.
No.
Or if the character growth and development happened, they didn't focus on it.
Got none of it.
There were people that showed growth.
Yep.
And they were not focused on. We decided we'll get to it. We're gonna go through this show step by step.
Mm-hmm.
But why? Let's start with the first thing. Why did we watch this? I think
I know the reason why.
Why?
Well, it was because of two specific people, really.
So honestly, it's because of Boys Planet.
Yeah.
We watched the show because we were so into Boys Planet. We're like, my god, this show's amazing. It's got this, like, it's also the gayest show on reality television.
Right.
Also, the fact that this episode does not come out on Pride Month, but this show finished on Pride Month and it feels homophobic.
Feels incredibly homophobic. Like,
everything about the show feels homophobic.
If we took any steps forward because of Boys Planet, this is like also
we're all the way back.
We're all the way back. It was like 3 steps backwards for that.
Yes. So, like, we had not watched My Teenage Girl.
No.
I will never watch My Teenage Girl.
No.
I have no interest in that show. But that show happened, and we know that there was going to be a sequel show, and we're already in the middle of watching Boys Planet. And when we decided to watch this show, the first episode of this show came out the same week we were also watching an episode of Boys Planet and an episode of Peak Time. So there was an overlap where we were watching 3
shows at once. And as much as Peak Time was giving me nothing, it's phenomenal in comparison to this show. Like,
oh, absolutely. Boys Planet was a goddamn masterpiece.
Mm-hmm.
But so we saw the cast.
Yes.
And the cast gave me nothing until we got to 2 people. As you know, any indication, I do watch a lot of BLs. I've seen both Santa and Yacht.
Mm-hmm.
We'll not call him Yaya. That is not his
awful.
name. That has not been his name.
I also would like to not refer to him as that because I don't like Yacht as a stage name.
It's terrible.
Yacht's a much better stage name.
Yacht is a better stage name. He should have just gone by Yacht anyway.
Mm-hmm.
We will be referring to him as Yacht on this podcast. I have been watching that boy in things for years at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not playing these games with him.
Yep.
But I was like, well, it could be giving lower quality Boys Planet. Like, because we've seen these type of shows be done by these smaller, like, not every show is Mnet.
Right.
Not every show is produce adjacent. We've seen things like Boys 24. We've seen things like The Unit or Mix 9 and all of that stuff, and that is done by smaller, Mix 9 is
well,
YG,
it's
yes, but
I think
smaller
it's
production studios.
It's smaller production studios, but weirdly, a lot of the survival shows that get put on the public broadcasting channels, like NBC, SBS, seem to be way lower budget and just like way worse produced as a whole.
But they're not like like, there's Mnet, and I think everybody else falls into the lower category.
Oh, yeah.
Because this was... Who was this?
It's NBC. I also just did some research because I was curious. NBC also did Wild Idol Extreme Debut. So really...
Which, again,
the top,
was a bad show.
Really bottom of the barrel of reality shows.
But I would say even Wild Idol is not this bad.
No. It's bad in a different way, but not nearly as close to how bad this was.
At the very least, they decided to focus on, and we'll get to my absolute thoughts of the fact that this... Alright, so what is our point? Because I can't go off on a tangent that I already know I'm going to go off on later. What is our first point? We're going to go through the positives first, right?
And we got none, really.
We got two positives.
Three people.
Three people that we want to highlight as people that when I looked at them, I saw a spark of joy.
Yes.
First, Santa. Santa was robbed.
Yep.
In every way. We will get to it when we talk about the negatives of this show. But Santa started bad.
Right.
I will admit, it didn't start great. However, Santa is one of the people I think genuinely saw the most improvement on this whole show.
Yes.
He got better.
Yes, he did.
He got way better. And two, he is one of the only contestants on this show, with exception, that has any form of stage presence. Because Santa's a good actor, if anything else. He is able to charm a crowd. And you know what? A lot of these boys can't say that.
And I can count on one hand the amount of times I saw him on screen in any given episode.
Yes. So we want to give Santa his flowers. Mm-hmm. Santa deserved.
Yes.
The second positive, Junwon.
Yeah.
I saw Junwon in Ant Audition. I liked him. He wasn't in my top favorites of that show, but I liked everybody on that show. He's a very sweet boy.
Yep.
It was still a sweet boy on this show, and one of the only boys that actually got a personality trait.
Yep.
Very few of them did.
And his personality trait was just that he was, like,
painfully
shy. So, like, just would not speak. And just, like, very...
And at times got so overwhelmed
such an introvert.
Could not speak.
Yeah.
And I find that charming and relatable.
It's very cute. I feel so bad for him that he's stuck in this group for 7 years, because he deserves so much more than this group.
Another positive. Santa not stuck in this group.
Yes, that's another positive. The fact that Santa can go back to Thailand, honestly, the best possible outcome for him.
Honestly, I was so happy for him. I
was really hoping because he was not going to make this group.
In a better show, he would have deserved to be in that group.
Yeah.
In this shit show, I'm happy he doesn't have to.
I'm honestly very happy for all the people who were good and didn't end up in this group. Like, that is the best case scenario for them. Like him, that kid from Cypher.
That one kid from Cypher.
That kid whose
name we forget.
There was another kid named Taesan. He was in the 24 o'clock team on Peak Time.
Yes.
Glad he's not in the group and wasting his time here. Like,
a lot of people, and we'll get to when we talk about the finale, a lot of people are talking about how so many people were robbed, and they were robbed.
Yes.
If this was a different group, they should have been in this group.
Because show's rigged, for sure.
Very happy that he's not there.
Yeah.
Taesun, happy he's not there.
Yes.
Santa, happy he's not there. The one kid, what is it? Myunjae?
Which one?
Yes, the blonde one. The blonde one with asthma.
Oh, yes.
That kid, great. Deserved better. These kids, fine. The third positive. The third person we want to highlight is Ling Chi.
Yeah.
Ling Chi.
He faced so much racism.
He faced so many struggles on this show.
He was having such a horrible time on this show.
I feel so bad for Ling
Chi.
And yet he is one of the best dancers on that show. Deserved. Thrived. Yep. I feel I'm so sorry you have to spend 7 years in this group.
I know.
But you are one of the 3 positives we have.
I know.
Those are our positives, everybody. Santa.
That's the only positive thing we have to take away from this entire 11 episode show. Like, that's it.
And it's the fact that I feel bad for 2 of them.
I know.
And the only one I don't feel bad for, I kind of feel bad for because he failed.
I know, but in this scenario, failing is winning.
Failure is winning. What do we even?
This show is it was too much. Like, oh my god.
I know. All right, so now we get to our neutrals.
Yep.
Things we're neutral about.
Yep.
We want to talk about our
the mentors,
mentor judges.
Yep.
Also, just to get it out of the way, Changmin hosted this show. Changmin did nothing.
Nothing.
Changmin was truly
adding nothing to being the MC of the show.
Did he need to add anything? Kinda no.
Yeah.
So I'm neutral on it. He he did his purpose, and honestly, we'll say this, he got through those eliminations quick.
Yep.
He got through all those speeches. He was like, let's bang this shit out.
Yep. Because I imagine they were paying him,
he was
like
salaried. He was not getting paid
because
hourly.
He was going fast. He was like, I would like to leave as soon as possible.
Yup. So, we had 4 main judges that were here.
Mm-hmm.
So, So-Yeon was here. She was on,
My Teenage Girl.
My Teenage Girl. She is still here. She was very hard on these boys.
Honestly, I think weirdly meaner to the girls on My Teenage Girl than she was to the boys on this show.
Yes. But also, is that maybe because she got backlash from being that mean, and then it's a whole situation?
That's kind of her thing. People kind of loved when she did that in My Teenage Girl, because it was like, she's not wrong. When she's like, you can't be an idol and sing like this. People are like, I mean, yeah, she's right.
Fair enough. I will say, so to go through the other ones, it was Sungyoon from Winner, Jin Young from B1A4, and Woo Young from 2PM.
Yep.
Those are our 4 judges. Kind of gave nothing.
Yep.
Kind of were giving me nothing. But also, we'll get to it when we talk about the finale. All of them have very open book faces, or at the very least, they were not trying to hide their thoughts during the show.
Yep.
You could tell who they did not like. You could tell when they were annoyed, and you could tell that they are not fans of this lineup, but we'll get to it.
It is quite something, the lineup.
Honestly, I kind of felt for them, because they kind of felt like they were, like, as time went on and they saw how these standings were going,
right?
I also kind of feel like they're like, oh shit, this is
what
gonna
the
end
fuck's going
badly.
on? Yeah.
And it did.
And these mentors have like more like effect on the outcome than like the Boys Planet people did.
Planet mentors,
because each one of them were like head mentor for a round, and that meant they got to like save a person. And in other rounds, it's like they were performing songs like produced by them. So I think they played a much more active role in the show than like the Boys Planet mentors did. But weirdly, feel more disappointed in the outcome of the show, which is
they
feels
had
bad
more
for them.
control, and yet
a worse outcome.
Everything went bad.
Yep.
So
also, just because this is just like a random thing about the show, I just wanted to say before we get into all of the problems with the show is that this is a second season to My Teenage Girl, and you will notice that the show is specifically not called My Teenage Boy, and that is because most of these kids are not teenagers.
No, they're not. Most of these kids are between, like, the ages of amorphous age that K-Soul is. But the oldest contestant that I know of was Yacht, officially, Yacht, who was 25.
Uh-huh.
K-Soul possibly older, who's to say.
How many contestants were on this show?
40-something?
Out of the however many people are on this show, 10 of them were under the age of 18.
Yes.
Out of the entire, 50-something people on the show.
And about, I think, 5 of them were under the age of, were 14
Yeah, let me count the 14 and 13-year-olds for a hot second. Five were 13 or 14, yeah.
Yeah, 5 or 13 or 14. Then you have, like, a couple of 15, 16, 17 very few. And then you jump to 18 to 25. And that's where the majority of this group
A lot of people are in, the 18 to 22 age, really.
So, now we've gotten to the negatives.
Mm-hmm.
Also, another thing that is just a weird thing I want to talk about, they have multiple times on that show referred to this show as Fantasy Boy Season 2.
Right?
That's not what this show is.
Incorrect in all ways. Like, this is
That's
not...
like if they went...
Like, what?
That's like if they went into Kingdom Legendary War and called it, this is Kingdom Season 3.
Right? Like, that's just incorrect.
Or if they did Queendom Season 2, and they called it Queendom Season 4.
Season 4? It's just like, what?
Like, that's not how that works.
You can't do that.
You can't change the name and then combine the show.
That's
this is not a second season of anything.
This is not how this works.
Nope, not a second season of anything.
Mm-hmm.
But, the auditions happen.
Yeah.
I So as we go on with the show, we've reached the negatives. How we're gonna do this is we're gonna talk about each round.
Yep.
Because they're all bad and they're all negatives.
Every round is bad, yep.
Every round is a negative. And then we're gonna talk about specific negatives we have about specific things and people and themes and everything else.
Yep.
Here's the thing. Very often, when we talk about the rounds, we're not necessarily going to be mentioning, we probably are going to mention some specific people.
Right.
But for the most part, I want to specifically focus on how every one of these rounds was set up with such shitty rules.
The rules
that don't
were so
make
bad.
Sense.
Oh, it's terrible. It's like, this is the worst format, like the worst possible way you can format a survival show. It's like,
Absolutely.
I don't understand, like, the thought process that went into, like, a lot of these rounds.
Oh,
like,
absolutely. And
why would you set it up like this?
Sort of, because Produce also has this thing where kind of every round is judged, like, a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, you kind of know the structure of what's going to happen. It's like, well, they're going to have this, like, 1 versus 1. They're both going to perform the same song, and, like, one group's going to win. And then usually, if you're doing a solo song, one song is gonna win. Like, you kind of have an idea. You can guess how the round is gonna go.
Yeah.
You can guess what they're trying to measure. If this is, like, an individual task or if it's a team task or whatever. This show does not have that. This show does not make sense in that way.
No, does not.
So, I think this starts from round 1, from the auditions. So,
Yep.
The auditions happened, and the way that this was set up was so tedious and bad. 1, the vast majority of the auditions were not aired. The vast majority of the auditions weren't even montage. They were just on the cutting room fucking floor.
Yep.
And you had to find them on NBC.com. At least with Boys Planet, there were a couple that were montaged, and there were a couple that were just not aired.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you kind of saw everybody, for the most part. And so, the way it's structured is you're either, because you can't use A, B, and C, or you can't use, you know.
And, like, because we're not using the, like, teenage, like, school format thing, they're not grouped by ages. So, they're just doing 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, and, like, 1st grade is you did really good, 2nd grade you did less good, and 3rd grade is you did the worst.
You did real shit.
You did bad, yeah.
And the thing with 3rd grade is that if you end up in 3rd grade, you are, like, on the chopping block to, like,
to get
not even go to voting.
Immediately eliminated, yeah.
And then you only get saved. So everyone goes through, I think, no, I cannot remember. Oh, the only thing I want to mention about the auditions.
The one talking about the really shitty one?
Daniel,
yeah.
That wasn't planned, guys. That's just what the really shitty one was.
The really shitty one is where there's, like, the worst cover-up hype boy you've ever seen in your life.
Oh my god. It might be one of the worst things I've ever seen, period.
Yep.
But, yeah, no, that guy, he's very bad. He's very bad.
He's pretty bad. In a
weird way, you could, as the show went on, you can almost see it was kind of reactionary to Boys Planet.
Yeah, 100%.
And we'll get into specifics later on with when we talk about, like, the specific production choices here. And I feel like they were very much hoping Daniel would be, like, an analog for Jay.
Except that kid came in with, like, no talent. Really he came in with no talent, and Jay came in with so much talent. And so they're like, there's no way you can turn that kid into something good.
No, we're not the biggest Jay fans. We love Jay. We love Jay, but Jay was not in our, like,
we were not, like, ride or die for Jay, yeah.
Oh my god, Jay would have been number 1 on this show.
Oh, absolutely.
Any of that top 18 from Boys Planet that didn't make except Hui. Except Hui. Honestly, in this show, maybe I would have rooted for Hui, to be honest.
Probably. If Hui was on with these people, absolutely.
Amongst these people, I honestly probably would have actually rooted for Hui.
Mm-hmm.
So, honestly, anybody in that top, what was the second round, like 28?
Like 28, 30-something? Yeah, I think 28.
Any of those, like, 30-something kids from Boys Planet would have been number 1 on this show.
I would go so far as to say, like, the top, like, 50 would
top
be.
50?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Because, like, some of these, like, those kids were pretty good. Wuwu-T. Yeah, like, Wuwu-T's in there. And even, like, if you put even, like, Doha or Mingyu or, like, Takuto.
Honestly,
like,
Doha
on this show. It's like,
oh god, comparing Takuto to these children?
Right?
Oh,
it's like,
Doha would have cleaned
house on this show.
Cleaned house on this show. Everybody would have cleaned house. Everybody would have goddamn cleaned house. But yeah, no, looking at this was a lot.
Can we also talk about that like really shitty like method of standing in front of the door that they have for the auditions?
Yeah, so I was about to get to that.
Yeah.
So essentially what happens is that all of the, if you get to be ranked 1, all 4 of the judges have to agree that you ranked 1.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to all give you a grade, and if one of them disagrees, you get the lower rank. So the way they do it is that, okay, so you step behind. It's so tedious. It's so unbelievably tedious.
It takes so long.
So
and for
essentially,
why?
all the different grades are in like ascending rooms. So
we're in like a hole. We're like a weird hallway situation.
Another room door. And so you take your rank gets quote unquote in your little like ID key card thing. You put the ID card next to a door and it opens the door. Then you put it next to the next door, and if you're advanced from 3 to 2, you're actually in rank 2, you go through the next door. If you're ranked, so you have to go through 3 doors, and you do the same fucking ceremony.
And we have to sit there for 30 seconds waiting for the door for each of these kids, and I'm like, my God, can we speed it up?
No wonder half of those auditions end up on the cutting room floor. Can you imagine doing that for like 45
people? Oh my God, for 40
people?
kids? Like, so, it's too much. It's too much.
It's so bad.
It's so much.
It's so bad. Absolutely so bad. But, so that happens. Then they do the Pick Me. Yep. I'm gonna call it the Pick Me. I don't care.
Sure.
Fantasy. They do the music video, which is whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't know, some people go home.
The judges, one judge gets to save, some amount
gets
of
to
the
save
kids
a bunch of these boys.
In 3rd grade, yeah.
And then the rest of them go home. How the hell Yacht made it through
Yacht made it through that round? Shocking, honestly.
Yacht, the worst person on this show. Yacht, honestly, my conspiracy theory is Yacht was sent there so Santa would
Yacht
be
was
lonely.
100% sound as like a babysitter for Santa, like, or a companion to Santa.
Santa is young. Santa is, I believe, 19 current. Yeah, Santa's 19. So, like, he's young. Maybe he needed to take his, like, he's in a new country. Can't speak any Korean.
No Korean. So bad. Speaks 0 Korean.
Also, this show truly made me remember how fucking good all of the... I don't know what happened on Boys Planet, but all of those foreign kids spoke such good Korean.
I know.
It's insane.
I know.
I don't know what happened on this
show. And so many of these kids don't
speak any of it.
They speak no Korean.
One kid. And that's, like, not inherently their fault, but, this isn't even, like, Boys Planet where you're gonna be in a 2-year group and you can kind of make that work.
This is a 7-year group. This is essentially a permanent K-pop group.
And why would you do this if you think they're not ready? Why would you send these kids if you think they're not ready?
Oh, it's wild.
I don't know, man. But, so, round 1.
Yep.
Okay, so let's just metatextually talk about how this is one of the worst rounds I've ever seen.
This is the terrible round. This is maybe the worst round on the show and one of the worst rounds in a survival show. Like, it's
so
awful.
Essentially what happens is it's called the visual mission. Immediately.
Immediate red flags.
Immediate red flag. Oh, before we get into that, I think we have the first not the first elimination, because they only eliminate those 3 kids, like those level 3 kids that are that actually were bad. And then we get to, there's a ranking at the end of the 2nd episode or something like that, at the end of when they do the Pick Me. And Santa ranks 1st and Yacht ranks 4th.
Uh-huh.
I only want to mention that because that is entirely because of the BL population, because that ranking was done before the show aired.
And no one had any idea
So no one had any idea. It was only based on people, like, either photos or people just, like, knew these people.
They knew them,
So June 1 also did really well. The Cypher Kid did really well.
Right, all of the kids who had any type of previous experience in a group or on a show did better. Yeah.
Yes. And Santa and Yacht did the best.
The best.
Because Yacht has
no
reason
to
be in that top 10. No reason.
No reason.
But, so, let's get to the visual mission. The visual mission is that they essentially laid out 6 outfits, right?
Yes.
They laid out 6 outfits. They had these kids essentially do a goddamn this is also where this show does stupid things. So, in Produce, very often they would have this, like, filler thing. It would often be filler for a elimination episode. because their elimination episodes were too fucking long. Where they would just have these kids go in and be like, who's the most attractive person on the cast?
Right.
Who do you think? And that answer would mean nothing. You'd get the answer, but it wouldn't really be anything that,
and this show said, what if we took that and we made an entire round out of it?
Yes. Because
and made that the most important factor of this.
Yeah, so the way they chose who got to pick first was they just went up. They went through every kid. Yes. They gave these kids, I think, a certain amount of stickers and were like, put the stickers on the kid you think is the best looking. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
What the shit's happening?
What is wrong with you? Also, some of these kids are 13!
Right? It's weird.
It's weird. And then as, I think whoever got they went from, like, the highest rank to the lowest.
Highest amount of stickers to least amount of stickers.
And I want to just, we're gonna go through the looks.
Yes,
so the themes are military, Asian look, school look, vampire look, marine look, and the sporty look.
Yes.
So they only get the outfit, they do not get any choice in the song, so they go by vibes.
Yes.
Let's
talk about how misleading these costumes or stage outfits are for these songs. Because
let's go through the two that I think are actually okay. Work.
Right.
So the sporty look,
yeah,
which I was thinking about like what could that be? Was 90s Love by NCT.
Makes sense.
Fine,
that's
I like it.
Absolutely
it would not be the
correct,
song I picked.
and it's absolutely the correct outfit for that song.
Because it's like sporty look, but it's like jeans and like a hoodie and a bandana.
Like, right, like it looks like what they're wearing in the music video.
It's
like
very
it
90s.
Makes sense, yeah.
You could have called it the 90s look, but I think that was like
that kind of gives it away.
90s Love.
That will just give it away, yep.
So I think that worked. That was fine.
Yes.
You get the school look. The school look, but it's an identical outfit to the Boy in Love school look, which is just a Korean
school uniform,
but it's not like bright colors. It doesn't give preppy. It gives like the correct school look.
It gives a correct vibe for that.
So
yes.
I agree with that. That one worked fine. The rest of these are bullshit.
Absolute bullshit.
So let's talk about military.
What does everyone think military looks like?
In my mind, I was thinking 80s.
I go 80s immediately for military.
In my mind, I go 80s. The look that they're wearing looks like the Wonderland.
Yeah,
80s
like this, it purely looks like straight out of an 80s music video.
Or at the very least, it's giving like maybe certain like Monsta X. So it's giving not the Stealer from the Boys. Absolute insanity. Does not work.
No.
Asian look. What do you think of Asian look? You think?
Yep.
I'm thinking Lit by ONEUS.
Right.
I'm thinking a Vic song.
Right.
I'm thinking something in that realm. No. Thunderous by Stray Kids. That's the one where I'm like, oh, they've been bamboozled. Because you go into it expecting one thing because it's the visual mission, and then you have to do Thunderous by Stray Kids?
Right, like what, huh?
Kaysel didn't even know what that song was.
No.
Which I feel is correct.
I think it's really funny.
Then
That's
we get
definitely not a bit.
No, it was 100% real. Then we get vampire look. This one I was thinking Vicks. I was thinking dark. I was thinking a good time. It's Deja Vu by ATEEZ.
Yeah.
What?
The fact that was ATEEZ and not the military one was wildly confusing.
You could have put Deja Vu by ATEEZ in the military look.
Right?
It's insane. And also, that is not a vampire concept.
It's not.
That's not even the ATEEZ song that would fit that concept.
They do a special vampire dance practice, but I'm pretty sure that was for Halloween specifically. That's otherwise they would not have had that.
And another one that I guess by process of elimination kind of fits, but doesn't.
But not really.
Marine look.
Yeah.
Marine, it's giving fun, it's giving young, it's giving youthful, which I guess fits Crown by TXT, but TXT is not.
But this
Marine?
costume is completely the wrong vibe for that song. It's absolutely not what they should be wearing in that song.
But they already did NCT. It would have been great for We Young by NCT.
I know.
Because that's just what they're wearing in that song.
Right? But it's sure, that's the vibe, but that's not the vibe for Crown by TXT.
I guess it kind of fits better than Vampire
I mean, it's better than any of the
still.
other, but still, it's like, what?
It's not good. And like the correct people pick that song because they realize that's where all the 13-year-olds end up.
All the children went to that song because that's where they should be.
Yeah, they should be there. But yeah, no, structurally this song was so bad. So essentially it is a group challenge, but you are judged individually because everybody gets to pick who their favorite person was. This is also where we begin to see that Korea hates Santa.
Oh, well, let's also talk about how before they did this round, they all had this weird runway mission. Where
they did have the runway mission.
They all, like, walked down a runway, and then whoever was in the audience voted on who they liked the best, and that's who got the center position.
Which is
the
stupidest way to pick that.
Wild, yep.
Oh, the other thing with that is that very much that caused a lot of problems for groups because the center position didn't work for some of the kids. Also, how did these kids already have sasaengs? The other thing we will get to is just how the timeline of the show makes no sense.
Doesn't make any sense.
This round would have been filmed before the first episode aired. How the fuck are there sasaengs for these kids already? Everybody in that audience had one of those big cameras.
Yeah.
Wild.
Also, I do want to point out that we watched the show on Viki.
We did.
For some reason, we did, and I don't know if this is how the show was edited or if it was like some weird international thing. We do not see the 90s Love team go down the runway or perform on the stage. And I'm like,
someone was telling me that maybe it was a thing with Viki because I think it aired in Korea fine.
Right.
But I think Viki... I'm like, how does Viki not have the rights to air a cover of 90s Love?
Right, and we can't even show the kids walking down the runway? I'm just like, what's going on here?
It felt conspicuous, because the way the show is edited is so poorly done that, like, sometimes they'll just leave you in the middle of a round and go to the next episode. So we thought that that's what happened to the 90s Love team.
Yeah.
And no, it didn't. We just never got to see it.
Mm-hmm. Wild.
So that team happened. Some people got first, some people didn't. I don't particularly care.
Yep.
Because really, by this point, we were by this point, I think, like 3 or 4 episodes in.
Uh-huh.
And we realized that none of these boys were going to get a personality.
No.
We were just going to barrel through these tasks.
There's truly no rememberable people on this show. Like, absolutely none. Except for one person for bad reasons.
One person for bad reasons, and then other people that just for sad reasons.
Yeah, other people for sad reasons are people that we knew before we started watching the show.
So
and one of them we will not see ever, so...
Nope. One of them gets conspicuously forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
So then round 2 happens. Round 2 is, there's a set, so they all go into a room. There are a set number of songs, and there are positions, so it's like, you can have, like, 3 vocalists, rapper 1, rapper 2, dancer 1, 2, and 3, or whatever that song needs. And essentially, this actual selection process I don't hate.
Yeah.
It is really the products that come out of this that I dislike. This is the least offensive round of this whole show.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially the way it happens is that it is done randomly. It's like everyone's name is in like a little bowl. You pick out a name, you go sit wherever you want to sit, right? And then if you want a position that has already been taken, you have to battle for it.
Yeah.
And essentially the other members of the group are the ones that decide who wins. And if you lose the battle, the incentive is you have to wait till everybody else picks, and then you get to pick.
You go to the back of the line,
you go essentially to the back of the line. And that's what happens. There was some drama. It wasn't enough drama that I cared.
Right.
But, so we get BTS's I Need You, which is a song that needs to stop being covered.
Yeah.
It's never covered well.
Yep.
EXO's Monster. Winner's Really Really, which is the song that everybody wanted.
Yep.
Don't understand that. Stray Kids is Miro and Masex's Shootout. As you can see...
The other thing for this round was, like, if you were a rapper, you had to write a rap, and if you were the dancing, you had to do the dance break.
You had to,
and I don't remember what the thing for vocalists was, but it was something.
I think they had to figure out their own ad-libs.
So maybe, something like that, yeah.
Something like that. It was something involving the ad-libs. And I'm like, these seem... Also, these kids didn't really write raps. They sort of just slightly tweaked the raps that were already in that song.
Mm-hmm.
Because also, don't make E-Wrong rewrite a BTS rap.
Yeah.
That seems like the worst idea imaginable.
Have a child write a rap,
over a BTS beat?
Right.
Sounds awful. Oh god, I'm looking at these lineups and I'm like, oh god, Ray also was trying to rewrite a winner rap.
Oh god. Oh, I would like to say that beforehand, because we lose Yacht at this round, don't we? Like in between these rounds, we lose Yacht.
Yeah, we lose Yacht after what's it called? The first round.
The first round, he leaves for health issues.
Yes, I genuinely think it is because he thought he was gonna get too far in the show.
Yeah, I think that was good. Yeah, he's like, I cannot be here. I gotta leave.
Because he realized he wasn't gonna get kicked off.
I also want to talk about his fan cam for Boy in Love, where he is truly doing nothing.
No, he's not. He's doing very
little.
I
saw so many TikToks about like, love how iconic he is to just be standing there and giving nothing like that the entire song.
I mean, you know what? That boy is more famous than that group is ever gonna be.
Oh, absolutely. It was so funny.
Is going to be fine, and so is Santa.
It was just, I found it
and you know
so
what?
funny.
He's back in Thailand. He's back in Thailand and back on TV. So you know what? Yeah. Good for Yacht.
Good for, honestly, best case scenario, Yacht leaves right there.
I don't know what Yacht was gonna get. Well, I don't know what Yacht got out. Is this a story? Did he get the story out of this?
I don't know. Because at least for Yacht, we got a whole message of him why he's leaving.
Yeah.
Other people will leave this show and we get it in a subtitle. Like, and also this person has left the show for reasons. And I'm like, what? We're just not going to address that at all.
I think as the show went on, the production stopped caring.
Yeah.
Because this is the beginning episodes. They still seem to care about everything that's going on.
Right.
So that's round 2. Or round 3, sorry. This is round 4. Round 4 is the teamwork mission. Which ends up not actually being a teamwork mission. Which ends up being just like a very weird...
It's like they're just gonna cover a song again. Like we're like these 3 rounds might as well be the same.
So this one is absolutely awful because this is the one where they were essentially just left in a. So
they were allowed to pick.
They were allowed to. They were just left in a room, and Sungyoon, who was apparently like the main mentor for that round, just told them, "Okay, so I'm gonna go across the street. When you guys figured it out, come see me, and you get to pick the song." So these kids don't know what song they're picking, and they're just having to make themselves into teams.
4 groups of 7,
and then sprint over to Sungyoon to pick the song. And so there is the wrong number of. There's not enough people in all of these groups. So essentially, people make groups, and then the people that are left over. Specifically the fact that, like, this is also when you just hear that, like, there's a very big problem on this show of just people being really vocal that they hate, that they cannot work with other people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why would you say that on TV? And also,
there's a lot of the kids saying things where I'm like, why would you say this on television? There's a lot of that this entire show.
Yeah, so, like, there's one, I think it's, is it Bumjun? I think it was, I'm looking at these kids' names and he's the one that's sticking out, that, like, they don't want to work with him, so they leave him with the group of, like, only 5 people. Mm-hmm. And so that there's 5 groups. So the first group that gets there chooses Sugar Rush Ride by TXT. A choice. In every capacity.
Also, such a recent song to cover
Very
as
recent.
Well. Like, super recent.
Then I think the second group picks Coco Bop. Then I think the third group picks Energetic. Then the fourth group is very thankful that they got there and were able to get BTS's Not Today. And here's the thing. This is 3 rounds and 3 BTS songs. What are we doing?
Yep.
Why?
Here we are. I love also how it was this show that decided to cover Energetic and not Boys Planet.
It was the Hui. It was the Hui.
They couldn't do it because of Hui.
And then the fourth team got stuck with NCT Dream's My First and Last. And they have none of the correct people for that.
Nope.
Because they have a bunch of 20-somethings.
Yep.
And so what happened was at, like, the midterm evaluation or whatever it was called, a bunch of these other teams had to kick out a person, and that person would have ended up going into
My First and Last.
My First and Last.
Which
and
is like,
guess who they kicked out? all of them kicked out the child. They kicked out Kaden from one team. They kicked out Erong from another team. Hayato, I don't think is a child, but I also am not positive if he was kicked out of a group or not. But maybe him too.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Also, what a weird way to run around. Just and just like, especially because of the way that they handle those finale songs, it's just like, it's so unnecessary for them to do it this way. Like, what's the point, really?
It's so convoluted, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, the team that has all of the top people, such as Sungmin and Junwan, wins by a decent amount. By a lot. By a lot. Even though they shouldn't have.
Yep.
Honestly, I don't know. So then we get to, each of the mentors writes a song, and then they put together, they essentially, by picking teams of what,
of who they want in
their group.
Yeah.
So we end up with Soyeon did a song called Spaceman. It was fine. It was essentially this show's, Say My Name, but worse.
Yep.
Sungyeon did Run. I remember nothing of that song, to be honest.
Nothing.
Jinyoung did Hold Me Tight. I don't remember anything about that one either. And Wooyoung did Snacks. Snacks is somehow the most memorable one. Somehow
what a weird song that is.
Truly speaking, it is if you mix Switch and Supercharger together, you get Snacks.
Super weird song. Like, it's a wild. It's weird.
Is it fair to say it's also somehow the most memorable one?
In a way, yeah.
Because also, Snacks.
Of course.
I don't like it.
Also,
I don't think it's good, but it is Snacks.
I think, like, a full week before this episode airs.
Oh, yes.
Spaceman and Run are performed on Music Core.
Yes.
As if, like, and also is wild because they were essentially, we don't know who's in these teams yet. It's a secret. And then literally the next day you see Music Core and here are two of the teams, like, just out here performing the songs on the show. Like, okay. Cool.
And so then we get to the finale. The finale is essentially the stupidest way of doing this because as the show has gone on, Sungmin and Junwan have been the only two people that have been in the top two since the second episode because the first time it was Santa and this show by this point refused to acknowledge that he's here. But
the longer the show goes on, the more effort is put into editing Santa out of the show entirely.
Absolutely. We'll get more into that in a bit. But essentially, both of them have this group of people. Now, on Boys Planet, when you make a group, and then people from that group leave, you even out the teams, right? We were not just gonna have, I don't know, Haruto do Supercharger by himself. Like, that's not how this works. But, so you have this, like, group of, like, 20-something people. Sungmin and Junwan make teams, right? And then the next episode, they eliminate people. Sungmin's team is going to do Shut Off, which is just this show's version of Jelly Pop, but worse. And Junwan's team is going to do Gesture, which is just this show's Hot Summer, but worse. The vibes are the same, and they are just so much worse.
And they're so much worse.
So, as we go through... So, I think each of these teams had about 14 or 15 people on it, roughly.
Yeah.
By the end of that elimination, Junwan's team has about 14 people on it. Sungmin's team has 7. And
we do not even those teams out at all.
In any way.
We got one group performs with 7 people, one group performs with 14 people.
And then, during the finale, which was bullshit, by the way, this finale, the only good thing about it was only an hour and a half.
It was short, but it was, my god, was it stupid.
My god, did it feel long, though.
Yep.
Oh boy.
Considering we've watched the Boys Planet finale
twice,
like 3 hours long, probably 2.5 times at this point. Like,
I mean, yeah, by this point, probably 2.5 times at least. 2 times all the way through.
Right.
And I had so much more fun. We watched a highlight reel of the Boys Planet finale
immediately after this finale
for a palate cleanser. But, so, they do a boring ballad. I'm not even going to mention it. It's a boring ballad. I don't know why they have a dance break in their boring ballad. This show really shows a lot of favoritism, but we'll get to it. So, the boys. Look, do we just want to go through each boy and the boys we don't know anything about we'd ignore?
Sure.
Or do we talk about them in clumps?
let's just go through them, I guess, because there's about at least half of these kids
I just do not, about.
I just do not know a lot of them.
All right, number 12. We got Kaden. Here's the thing with Kaden. Kaden is 13 years old, and Kaden does not speak Korean.
He's Korean American, only speaks English.
Through most of the show, this kid does not speak any Korean, and I feel this kid is so green. He's a child.
Green. He's a child.
He's a child too, but he could be good. He is currently not good. He is a child.
He's currently not good because he's a child.
Then we have Hikaru at 11.
Nothing to say about him.
Nothing to say. Then we have Woosuck at 10. Nothing to say.
Do not any recollection of him.
At number 9, we have Kaysel. So many things to say.
We'll get back to that. We'll come back to that later.
Put a pin in Kaysel, but we are not pleased. At 8, we have Hikari, who has been personally victimized by Kaysel. We will get to that. At 7, we have Kang Minso. I do not know who that is.
No, nothing to say about him.
6, we have Lingchi. I am conflicted. I feel bad for Lingchi.
Yes.
For everything about Lingchi. But Lingchi is also talented. Which is unfortunate because it will be wasted talent. At number 5, we have Lee Hanbin. The only thing about Lee Hanbin I think is notable is that I think
his name is Hanbin.
His name is Hanbin, and think about this, people. You know how we had that Jaehyun stage a couple years ago back at the Mamas? When was that?
We can realistically do a Hanbin stage now.
We can definitely do a Hanbin stage.
We can do a Hanbin stage.
This Fantasy Boys has a Lee Hanbin. ZB1 has a Sung Hanbin. Tempest has a Hanbin. The Wind has a Kim Hanbin. I think it's a Kim Hanbin.
And then also BI
is a Hanbin. His real name is Hanbin. And then I think his name is Choi Han. Is his name? No. I think
maybe the Wind. I think it's BI Kim Hanbin.
Yeah, BI is Kim Hanbin.
And then the Wind is Choi Hanbin.
And then
we also have Park Hanbin just like around in the Wake 1 basement.
So we can realistically with these 6 people, and if BI doesn't want to come, it's fine, BI. You don't need to do this.
We have enough Hanbins.
We have enough other Hanbins to do a 6-person Hanbin stage just from people out of my memory.
Yes.
Mainly because we were looking for a Choi Hanbin. We Googled it and we found out it was a member of the Wind, so that was convenient.
And they just debuted, so like that's perfect for this.
I think that would be amazing. So Lee Hanbin, we needed you for that.
Yes.
Okay, at 4 we have Oh Hyun-tae. Another child. He's
another one.
He's the 14-year-old.
Okay.
Why? Why is he here? He's more okay. He's still a child. I don't want to call him good because he still has so much room to grow. He's more okay than the other 2 children in this group. He's not as green, but I still don't like it.
But still not good to have him in the group,
3 is Sungmin, even though Sungmin was like number 1 for 4 of these rounds and then went to... Why?
I also want to say how we identified Sungmin throughout a lot of the show is because he looks dead behind the eyes. He does.
Especially in those big... And it's mainly not because of him, it's because of the makeup they specifically put
on
him.
The eye makeup?
Specifically those like first 2 episodes, it was very slightly only putting eyeshadow on the bottom lid of your eye, not like so much on the top. It was a lot.
Like red eyeshadow too. And that's like the eye makeup they use for a lot of kids on this show.
Yeah, especially in the I think it got better as it went on.
Looking.
Yeah, it didn't look good. It did make him look a little very tired and very dead behind the eyes. Yes. So at number 2 we have Kim Gyu-rae. Okay, here's the thing.
He was like the token child for the show.
So 9 times out of 10, when you have a group of kids on the show, I go back to Island. Whenever people were making Island lineups, and when people were talking about Island, and talking about it in hype, and people were like, well, there's 3 kids. We have Nikki, Daniel, and Taki. We're gonna get one of them. It's just whichever, like, they were put in a category, and when someone would put one of them in their lineup. No one put multiple of them in their lineup.
And that's kind of how, like, Boys Planet was too, except everyone was kind of, except Yujin was really pretty far ahead of the other children, so it was like Yujin would be the token child of the group.
Yeah, no one was gonna put Takuto and Yujin in the group.
Right.
Like,
it's like
you have one token child. And this show, it was looking like Gyu-rae for this whole show was gonna be our token child.
Because Gyurei also suffered a lot of people being really mad that he was performing as well as he was, and were just, like, shitting on him the entire time, which is, like, sad. Really mean to do to a 13-year-old child.
Because, like, no one was... Because I feel like a lot of people, like, put their hand out to Kaden and, like, helped guide him through this show.
Right.
Less people put their hand out to Gyurei and helped guide him through this show.
Everyone was just talking shit about Gyurei the entire show.
Gyurei, I will say, for the most part, did... like, not vote, but, like, he performed in terms of his rank extremely well. He was always in that top 12.
And it's like, he is talented, but he definitely placed higher than he deserved in a lot of things. And I think that's why people were mad. And I think people attributed him performing well to him being a child.
Yeah. Which is never, because that's just a Korea thing, though.
Right. It's weird.
So
also wild that he came in second. Like, I still am, like, wild that he managed a second place.
I think he was surprised he managed a second place.
Yeah.
But, yes. Again, I think that Gyurei, much like Kaden, and much like, what is his name?
Hyuntae, the other one.
Thank you, Hyuntae. All of them will be fine in a couple years. They will be very decent idols. They're still too green. They still need more work, and the work is not going to get done when they're already having to work 12-hour days to be a K-pop idol. Also, no 13-year-old should work 12-hour days to be a K-pop idol.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, the fact of the matter is that people were so pissy about... Because no member of New Jeans is 13 years old. They're all, like, I think 14, 15, 16. Like, they're all... they're minors. But they're not children.
Yeah.
And... people were so pissy about that, about, like, other minors debuting. But then you get this group that is supposedly voted upon.
And we have
three children?
3 children? Like, and we're not talking, like, 15, 16. We're talking 13 and 14 years old. Like,
people were so upset about that Loud group that had that 13-year-old in it.
Yeah.
Until the point that they removed the 13-year-old.
And then Psy removed him from the group.
Because he needed more help. And this is fine?
And we have this group that is 1/4 children.
1/4 child?
Hello?
What do we...
But then, Junwon got first because and Junwon deserves way more than this show.
Junwon deserves so much better than this show.
He shouldn't have been on this show.
Junwon, you could have been on Boys Planet, Junwon.
I know.
And I feel like you would have done better than E-chan. I know he wasn't on Island. I know Junwon was not on Island, but I sort of put the Island boys and the audition boys in, like,
they're in,
one
like,
clump.
the same, they're similar, yeah.
They're in one just massive pool of boy.
Yeah.
Because they're all ex-Hybe.
Because E-chan was really having a bad time.
E-chan was having a bad time on that show. But also, somehow, I feel like E-chan got more votes than most of these kids combined.
So, yeah, that's the other thing, is the way that the voting worked, no idea. Sense. No sense, because the voting periods and the broadcasting schedule do not match up to each other in a way that makes sense. And also we're given, like, how well people are doing ranking-wise in terms of points and not by votes. And I'm like, I have no idea what the fuck that means. Like, points. Like, that you have 100,000 points? I don't know what that means in any relative to anything.
So, to do this, like, point by point. 1, the voting periods make no sense because very oftentimes you would get to the end of a voting, like an elimination episode, there'd still be people left to get saved, and then they would show you a preview that is the next round. That makes no sense. Apparently, also, people were saying that apparently they would shoot, like, 3 or 4 each round of these in, like, about a week, and the elimination, and then have, like, 2 weeks off. Because that's why all of them, every round, come back with different hair. And that's how Santa was able to do a fan meeting in the middle of the show, because that's apparently fine. And at the end of the day, like, you know how it was super annoying that Boys Planet every episode started with and this is the voting regulation booth that we are using to validate everything that's going on. This show didn't have that.
None of that.
This was such bullshit. Even if, and I don't believe this for a second, but even if on the off chance that these are the numbers. This is, they took the numbers that they got from whenever they arbitrarily decided to stop the voting. Even if this is 100% the actual results that they were given, which I don't believe. But even if it was that, this is a tainted thing because the rules were not set out correctly. Boys Planet very clearly told you.
There was no explanation for how the show worked at all.
There was nothing of like, and you can vote till this date. Boys Planet was very clear with you of when you can vote.
It was like, here's the voting period, it's open now, here's when it ends, here are ranks in the middle sometimes.
Yeah. Yep, and then the voting stops at a certain, stops.
Right. And then when we got the elimination episodes, we got both the here are the votes, and then here are how that's weighted into points. Like, we got everything in that show.
And also here are the votes, and then the voting this show seemed like it never closed its voting.
Yeah.
It seemed like it just took people out because you could still vote. I very specifically remember one instance where they left the 28th spot open. And they were like, and it could be any of these 3 people. You could still vote for those all 3 of them, 2 of which were not there.
Right.
This show was so poorly formatted in that way that any results you get is fully tainted.
It's like whenever we saw an elimination episode, we were like, so these are the votes from 3 weeks ago that we're seeing on television this week, because it's like the timelines do not match up at all. And the other thing is,
you are not able, because of that, you're not able to react to what's happening in the moment.
Absolutely not.
I don't know, that's why you end up with people upping and downing ranks so fast. And
what feels so weird is because, we talked about how on Boys Planet the editing was really aggressive because they had to quote unquote rig their group in that way because they couldn't rig the votes in any way.
Someone went to jail.
This show feels like it is both aggressively editing and also rigging the votes. It's like somehow this show is doing both of those things.
The person that got aggressively edited poorly and somehow also got rigged into the group.
Yeah.
So
wild.
Okay. So
it didn't work at all.
Let's talk about the abstract. What do we have on this?
Yep.
What order are we doing this in, Kayla?
We gotta do the racism first. Okay.
So this show
very racist.
Felt extremely racist.
So much racism.
So very specifically, the beginning instance of this was during what? Hold on, let me find.
I think it was round 1.
It was round 1. It was in the Steeler. I was trying to find where these boys were. So in the Steeler, you have a bunch of Korean boys, and then you have Ivan and Ling-chi. Now, Ling-chi, his Korean does get better over the show. His Korean is not good at the beginning. He doesn't speak Korean very well. Ivan, on the other hand, speaks a little bit better Korean than Ling-chi, but not great. But he is often there is helping translate for Ling-chi. The boys around them just start talking so much shit about about them when they are in hearing distance.
Yes.
To the point where Ivan literally goes to them and says, I don't know exactly what you're saying, but I know when someone's talking about us.
It's like, I know you're talking about me.
And
I also can understand enough of what you're saying. It's like, I know you're shit-talking me when I'm right here.
I know! It's absolutely so dumb! Ugh.
And it's just like, oh man.
And then Ivan leaves. I don't think it's in this round, but at some point Ivan chooses to leave. And I'm like, good for him. He should not be having to deal with this.
Yeah.
And there's multiple instances of things like this happening. And some of those people end up in the group. And I'm not saying people can't change. I'm not saying people can't get better. But holy shit.
It's just the blatant, in your face, representation of, racism against anyone who isn't Korean in this show is baffling, honestly.
Yeah. I would also like to point out just that we got rid of, not Dale. I keep calling him Dale, but that's not his name. Well, the Boys Planet kid. Dowell. Thank you. I'm like, it's not Dale, but I call him that all the time. Dowell, because we were scared that he was going to make the group through no fault of his own.
Right.
We destroyed that kid's confidence and career because of that.
The entire fan base just absolutely plummeted him in rank. Because they're like, it's like the fan base became self-aware and recognized what was happening, and we're like, we can't let this happen again.
And this show just allows people that have been just fully, is it because no one was watching this show?
Right?
Were we the only people?
And that's, like, also a part of, like, where it's, like, people can't reactionary vote to anything because we're seeing these kids just be straight up terrible to each other.
And then
they can't do anything about it because the voting is so fucked up that it's, like, we don't even know what's happening.
And here's the thing. Once the voting catches up and their vote plummets, it's been weeks, so people have forgotten what they did. So now that they're reactionary, it seems like it's reactionary voting to the performance that they did when it's not.
Right.
It's so dumb. What other instances of racism were there?
Well, also the whole thing with Santa, where it's like, the longer this show goes on, the more we just do not see Santa.
No. So in the beginning, they do try to put Santa in. Santa's Korean is not great, but, like, he's progressing. Santa is one of the few people that actually seems to improve throughout the show.
We get a lot of him in the beginning of the show, of him, like, dancing in the night and, like, trying, like, really, really hard to get better.
And
then,
like,
we do see a lot of him at
first. Goes on, I think somehow no one in the live audience, which seems to be about maybe 100 people, if that,
and it's also 100% Korean people,
all Korean, hates him.
Yep.
They do not vote for him. He comes dead last in most of the time, which is insane.
I think every single performance he does, he's in last or second to last.
When they're only taking the ranks of people in the room, which is so stupid.
Yeah, he comes second to last in this one round only because Yacht comes in last.
Yep, there it is. And by this point, by the end of the show, Santa is the only Thai member. He is the only not Korean, Chinese, or Japanese kid in this whole show. And I'm counting, like, Korean, American, all of that, whatever. Like, other than those, like, specifically East Asian countries, he's the only Southeast Asian kid left.
Yeah.
And he is so shoved, to the point where by the end, we almost had this, like, little game where we're looking for him. And he's not there because at some point,
like, where's Santa if he's not here?
So
he could have just been not in a lot of this, and I wouldn't have known.
Probably. So he was in the Kpop team, and the Kpop team has a storyline. I think the storyline revolves around one of these boys having no confidence, whatever, and we get a whole thing about everything. And then
is this also when we're getting when we're trying to get a K-Soul redemption?
We are trying to get a
K-Soul
redemption
in there, yeah.
And then the Kpop performance starts, and Santa's sitting in a chair, and we're like, why is he in a chair? Why was this not told to me? Why am I finding out right now? And then we find out that he is injured in some way. We never get an answer to what the injury is.
He just has some type of injury.
We see him going into either a CAT scan or an MRI, and I cannot tell we do not get any description of what his injury is. And then periodically, other than when he is physically needed to be in elimination episodes or performances, he is in nothing. He's not in
You do not see him.
He is not in Weird Field Day.
He is not on the show.
He is not there when Junwon and Sungmin are picking teams, to the point where he gets picked almost last, because at some point I feel like they forgot that he's an option to pick because he's not right in front of them.
Because he wasn't there.
And then I think at some point, who was helping them pick? One of the mentors was there and was just like, hey, you need to, like, Santa's an option. It's like, oh shit, right, we gotta pick Santa. Like, no shit, he's there. Right. And by this point, Santa's ranking in the top 20, in the top 12. He's still
ranking in the top 12. Like, he drops to 20th once, and then he's in the top 12 for the rest of the show, except for the finale. Like,
absolutely. And then at some point, no one explains to us why Santa's not at the picking of teams. There's one subtitle that's like, and Santa was not here due to injury. Like, thank you.
It's like, okay.
It's a blink and you'll miss it moment. So, what's next?
What is next? We've got, the children.
Oh, right.
Just the general concept of the children.
There's so many kids on this show. And there are also so many instances where the kids there's, on a show like this, if you're gonna have children that young, you do have to sort of make these songs work for children that young.
Yeah.
And, like, Yurei out here doing Gesture, and I'm like, no!
No!
That's like if Yujin was in Over Me.
It's like, we can't do that.
If you're gonna rig shit, rig him out of that.
Also, like, the children are getting bullied.
They are.
majority, like, grown adult people on this show, like, for most of this show.
And then at some point, these children are having, like, internal rivalries, because, like, then you have Erong just being like,
right.
Well, this kid's my nemesis. I'm like, you're 13! You don't have a nemesis
at 13 years old.
Then again, at 13 years old is the only time you have a nemesis, because the only time you care about things like that, but still.
True.
I feel like these kids have just been left to their own devices, and are just... Like, Erong's over here having a time, and no one's helping him get over his jealousy. But then on the other corner, we got everybody bullying Yurei, and I'm like, well, I guess we're just teaching Erong that the jealousy is fine, because you're bullying another child.
You're bullying him, yeah.
Absolutely insane. You cannot be out here as a 20-something-year-old either telling these kids, like, I don't think Yurei needs to be the top child. I'm like, he's 12 years old. You need to realize that it is not his choice to be up there.
Yeah.
Oh,
like, they have truly no control over how they rank on this show.
The other thing about this show is I want to point out how oftentimes these kids were put in situations that they were uncomfortable with. Because I will give one thing to these children. These children are very cognizant of the fact that they're 13 years old. And, like, sometimes they're like, well, I don't want to do that song because it's kind of sexy, and I don't think that fits my brand. And I'm like, your brand is that you're 13.
Your brand is that you're a child, yeah.
At one point during Coco Bop, before Kaden was moved, I distinctly remember K-Soul, like, he's talking to K-Soul, which is a bad idea. Don't talk to K-Soul.
Bad idea, number one. Don't interact with that man.
But... he was like, I don't think this fits me. It's sexy. And I would not call Coco Bop the sexiest thing I've ever seen, but I get, yeah, sure. And K-Soul's like, you have your own form of sexiness. I'm like, no, he does
not. You don't tell that to a child.
No, he does not have that kind of sexiness. He's 13 years old. That's not the wording you use.
Don't say that.
It's so bad. It's giving that one time, who was it? Wanyang and... Who was it?
Was it the Wanyang and Yurin were that side to side?
We're in side to side. Yeah. Someone should have rigged that shit. So much of Produce 48 was rigged, and we couldn't have rigged those two out of that song.
I know.
So much of that show was rigged. Why was that not one of it? I don't know. It just felt like the way they were treating these children was... I think that there is a level of responsibility you need to have if you have a child that young on the show, and you choose to have a child that young on the show. And that is to... Like, you can say, I treat them like every other contestant, but they're not like every other contestant. They are a child. They do not have the developed enough frontal lobe to figure out what's right and wrong.
Right.
They don't know how to do... I don't know anything about 13-year-olds anymore, but, like, they can't do algebra yet. Let them be.
Yeah. Yep.
Like, it seems just like, if you're gonna have a child that young, they cannot be treated like every other contestant. You have to be responsible
for them.
Yeah.
Like, it's... Because they can't... Like, with a lot of how these show formats are, because, like, they can make their own decisions in some ways, but in a lot of ways they can't. Cannot. So, like, yeah.
And in many ways, these kids...
The staff needs to be, like, in the production of this show, I felt like needed to do a lot more for all of them.
And this isn't, like... Because at least in something like Island, which is a show that we have our problems with,
yeah.
But at the very least, it seemed like the other contestants were extremely cognizant of Nikki and Daniel specifically, and Taki too. And we're like, we need to help these kids. And nothing about Island was ever, like, a sexy concept. It was all, like, more of that kind of concept. But it felt like they were, like, taking care of these kids.
Yeah.
On this show, it felt like some people were taking care of these kids. Like, I think Yuma was trying to. And then some people were, like, being like, why are these kids still here? I'm like, because they're kids. And don't bully kids. Also should be something I have to tell 20-something-year-olds is don't bully kids.
Right? Don't bully children as an adult.
Because also, you can think those thoughts. Here's the problem with this show. I think a lot of the inside thoughts were outside thoughts.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, the racism? That's very bad. That's very bad. Not condoning it in any way. But dear God, why are you having that conversation in front of them?
Right?
Just feels rude.
It's very rude.
And then why are you having the Yurei outside thoughts when they are inside thoughts? You can look, honestly speaking, you can be bitter that you're losing to a 13-year-old. Sure. Like, if you're in a high stress competition show, I get it. But again, inside thoughts. Not outside thoughts.
Not a thing you say on national television.
Also, not a thing you say to the child.
No, absolutely not.
Ugh.
Awful.
Next.
We have, the dorm room.
Oh, the dorm room situation. So this show has the worst dorm room imaginable. This show is honestly, it's giving Chwang 2019 in a way, but worse. It feels more open than that show. So the way this show was set up is I genuinely think this was a warehouse somewhere. This can't have been a real building. It has to be a warehouse. So they just set up bunk beds along the side and like a couple of like it seems like two full-size beds just or two twin-size beds put together, and they count as two beds, so two people are sleeping there and essentially having to cuddle in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And they're just a row of that in the middle. And that is the dorm room.
The weird bunk beds also, for some reason, look like they're too short. I don't know what's going on there, but they look weird.
Maybe that is just because we're American and things are taller, but the bunk beds look like they're about 5 foot, which feels like it's too short for fully grown-ass people to be sleeping in. It looks like a child's bunk bed, is the thing. You know how children's bunk beds are slightly shorter, so if they fall over, they don't die? It feels like a child's bunk bed.
Yeah.
It could be. These people probably were treated terribly. The other thing is that, at least in Boys Planet, this was it was a messy dorm room. They weren't big rooms. But you could tell that there was, a little bit of space in there. Like, they had closets. These kids didn't have closets. These kids were living out of a suitcase. Which makes sense if they were coming in for 4 days and then leaving for another week and a half.
Immediately,
but still, there's nowhere to unpack.
And also, no wonder why all of those kids were getting sick if they're living in this one room that's definitely not meant to be lived in together.
And also definitely drafty as shit. Because it's one open room with doorways on either side. And that they're not so much doorways as just openings that lead into hallways. They're not closed. It's probably drafty as shit. So that's the dorm situation is probably one of the worst things. Also, it just seemed so fucking bright in there. It did.
And it felt like, and also from the way that we saw it, seemed like the lights never fully went out either.
There was, at very least, there was a boys fantasy, neon sign that was always on, which, for some people you can sleep through that. For other people, that's gotta suck.
Yeah, for sure.
But for the most part, when the lights were on, it was, full stage lighting. Because at least in, the Boys Planet dorms, it was, a dorm room. There was, it wasn't great lighting, but it was the correct lighting for a dorm room. There was a light. And also, so much of this show took place in the dorms. Which essentially meant that room was never your, how I feel especially on these shows, especially if we're gonna have them there for long periods of time, there does need to be a separation between this is where we go to stop working and this is where we're working. This show felt like there was no separation there. They were constantly on the show.
Absolutely,
and at least in the Boys Planet dorms, it stopped. It kind of felt... No, in the cube, they still had rooms in the cube. I'm thinking about the island cube. But, there were still individual rooms there, and they were all okay.
A weird, shared dorm military bunk area felt like it was a set, rather than a place where people could, actually live in it. Yeah. It was not fun.
It was very set, which, again, it does make you a little bit feel better about the fact that they filmed, each round over, 4 days, which is also probably why the actual performances were not very good, because they had 4 days to do it.
Right.
But at the very least, they got to leave. Afterward.
I also want to talk about how at the finale the performances were bad.
Still bad.
This is the finale of this show and everyone's out of sync. And you can clearly tell some of those kids are struggling hardcore. And I'm this is the finale of your show.
And some of the kids
and your
that
finale
make the
songs
group,
are terrible.
And some of the kids that make the group are struggling hard. I'm what are you doing?
So struggling. It's too struggling so much.
Wild.
Oh man.
So,
alright, then we just have the just June 1 generally.
So June 1, I feel the most bad for. I feel the most bad for because unlike Santa, he has to be in this group for 7 years.
Yep. Unfortunately.
I feel like the production of this show realized that he is technically the most talented person here, which is true. And realized they had to put him in the group, but I don't think production wanted him to be a different person. Because I think production wanted someone more outgoing. I think production wanted the personality of someone like Sungmin. Even though Sungmin didn't have that much personality on the show because they refused to let us know anything about him.
We got to know nothing about so many of these kids.
Most of these kids. But, like, nothing. I feel like because, again, I think they wanted Sungmin to be the Hanbin. I think they wanted him to be the person like, the one thing with Hanbin is a humble king, but he is, like, he's got personality there. He's fun. He's charming. Sungmin, they didn't let him do anything.
He didn't do shit on this show.
They didn't let him have that personality. He was just number one for the whole thing. And they looked at it, it's like, well, they used him as, like, a plot device more than anything. They let him be like, well, he's number one. I want to be on a group with him. And, like, anytime he would try to show personality, I feel like they would just focus on other people. And then Junwon, unfortunately, his personality trait comes out because they keep forcing him into situations where he's got to talk. And he can't because he's overwhelmed. And that makes me feel bad. I truly, truly hope he is not the leader of this group.
And can you just imagine having to wrangle the other people in this group?
Having to wrangle
specifically the one person we're about to talk about next.
Specifically him, and also specifically having to, I don't want to say deal with, because deal with has, like, a negative connotation, but, like, having to essentially raise Gyure, Hyuntae, and
raise
Kaden.
3 children?
Because K-pop groups, like, 10 years in, people often talk about how, like, well, BTS fucking out here raising Jungkook, or people out here, like, Stray Kids was raising IN, or, like, Giddle raised, Chua, whatever, like, people that debut really young, like, the group kind of has to raise them because they started at 14 and haven't seen their parents in 10 years. Like, that's a joke, right? There's 3 13-year-olds.
3 of them in this group.
By the time, we've done the math, by the time this show ends, those 13-year-olds will be the age Junwon is now.
Yeah.
They will be 20 and he is currently 20.
And 7 years from now.
7 years.
They're gonna go through puberty while in this group.
They were going through puberty while they were on this show.
Yep.
Apparently that makes me go through puberty with the way my voice just went. But, like, oh my god, it's so sad. For everyone involved. I think none of the people in this group deserve to be in this kind of situation, just because I don't think it is a responsible idea to have any 13-year-olds. 14, it truly depends. Like, I think 14 is the minimum age. And I think that is in rare circumstances, and you need to have the correct group for that. And also, it needs to be 1 14-year-old per group. That's usually how you do it, right? That's usually, the maknae is 1 person. We don't need 3 of them.
We don't need 3. We definitely do not need 3 of them in this group.
The rage is building. Shall the rage overflow with the next point?
The next point, the rage shall overflow when we talk about the one, the only K-Soul.
K-Soul is the worst idol I've ever seen in my life.
I have never seen a worse person to be a K-pop idol in my life, and there are a lot of really shitty K-pop idols.
There's a lot of really shitty people as people. We're not even talking about
my god, is this kid the worst.
Okay, but also, let's just get one thing out of the way. K-Soul is a bad idol. Like, as
terrible
an idol. Like,
number 1, untalented. Purely very untalented.
So many people have been pointing out, just watch him do, like, any kind of, like, TikTok dance cover. Or even in Coco, even in performances on this show, he is out of sync. He's not talented. His rapping is the most subpar thing I've ever seen. What about any of this?
What about any of this is good?
What about this makes me think, like, you know what? I can get over a shitty personality. He's talented enough for that. No, he's not! We have thrown away K-pop idols for, I don't know, getting into a drug scam, for possibly taking ecstasy. We have thrown out idols for getting a DUI. Not condoning DUIs, just saying. We have thrown out K-pop idols for possible bullying scandals that they were later exonerated on. We have thrown out K-pop idols just because people didn't vote for Kites on Boys Planet because he was too short. There are arbitrary reasons we have not voted for people. Fucking goddamn Doha and Mingyu were like destroyed because of people got too meta in their heads.
Yeah.
And
you're telling me we allowed K-Sol to be in this group?
And no, we're just okay with K-Sol on par. K-Sol, one of the top 12 people in the show. Fuck off.
And, like, let's start at the beginning, because there's, like, a laundry list of problems about this man.
The beginning begins before the show airs.
The beginning begins before the show airs, because, spoiler words, we do not know how old this man is.
K-Sol?
He could be anywhere between the ages of 28 and 23. 22, 23. Anywhere in between those two ages.
Because on this show, I believe he puts his birth date down as 2000.
He puts his birth as 2000.
Which...
Yes.
It makes him the same age as Junwon, and no, makes him 3 years older than Junwon, but like puts him on par with like other people, and like no, he looks older. You can look at him and tell he looks older. And then people start looking at, because K-Sol has been on other shows before this show.
He's been on 2 survival shows in China, which is We Are Young and something else,
and another one.
Something. What is the other one?
He was on
Stars. Was he? No, what was it? We Are Young and Super Idol.
Yes,
the 2. Yeah.
And here's the thing: he puts different ages. So on those other shows, he puts different ages. I think he
puts 97 in one and 98 in the other one.
And then people look into it more, and it's possible that he was born in 95. It's
because people supposedly think they found his school records, and in that he would be born in 95.
Which seems correct. He'd be 27. That seems more like the right age. But like,
yeah,
what? He's older than we are.
Also, I want to say, why did we do zero fact checking about this when he applied for this show?
Also, why did we do zero
when
fact checking?
When this man has been on television with 2 separate ages, and we can't even ask him for, like, can we have some form of identification?
Hi, can we see your passport?
Hello?
We need to see his passport. I want to see his goddamn passport, because there's no way China's letting you change your age on your passport.
No.
I need to see some sort of documentation, some sort of record, or in my mind,
like
be the boy
any type of form of identification for him. And apparently this show is so garbage that they're like, no, we don't need that.
In my mind,
like, okay then.
He is 28, unless I am proven wrong.
Oh yeah.
But now we just need to look at the implications of the fact that he is 28 years old. He's 28 in a group with 13-year-olds. And he's also the one person that told one of those 13-year-olds you have your own kind of sexiness.
And I'm like, okay now.
He's 28 years old. That's not
What's going on?
That's not okay for any adult to say to a child, but like, it's 28, you should know better.
Yeah. Not good.
So that's
really
strike 1.
Strike 1.
Strike 2.
Strike 2 is the culture appropriation issue, which is he's worn dreadlocks before. That's a common issue among a lot of people.
And it's not even like dreadlocks. It's dreadlocks specifically with the outfit that's all just giving
Yeah. And so that's another common like issue in K-pop. It's not the worst thing he's done, but it's not good in any capacity.
List. It adds that combining with other things adds to the laundry list. Third is the fact that he was fat-phobic to a person on this show who is currently in a group with him. There's a clip going around of him just talking about how Hikari needs to lose the double chin. Excuse you?
Oh, right.
Hikari!
Hello?
That's one, just incorrect, because, like, they're K-pop idols. They're all skinny and attractive and fine. But why would you say that?
It's just, like, so rude.
And that's all shit that has happened outside of the show. Now we can get into shit he said on camera.
Yeah.
Other than the sexiness comment, that didn't happen on camera. But we have the fact that he was constantly belittling other contestants, trying to get all of the lines.
Yes. Let's also talk about this very bizarre thing he's doing where this is like nothing that can be confirmed. It's all kind of like
vibes
that we have to get from the show. Is he is trying to convince people he's Korean.
Oh, absolutely.
He is trying so hard to get people to forget that he is Chinese. And it's like going to the extent where he's like also feeding into the racism that like Ling Shi and other like Chinese contestants have faced on this show. Because he feels he's above that. Because he doesn't want people to remember that he is also Chinese. Yeah. Like
he only
and that's why his stage name is K-Sol. Yeah. Because that is he 100% chose that in a way to try to convince people he was Korean.
Changmin tells him in one of the elimination episodes, "Oh, do you want to say anything in Chinese?" And he just looks at him with these eyes and doesn't say anything. He continues to speak in Korean. The only time I've ever heard him speak in Chinese was at that finale when it was too late to do anything.
Right.
Also, the only time he ever mentions being a foreigner is when it's gonna get him sympathy points. Because I think one of the only times he's mentioned he either mentions it in, like, passing, it's like, well, we're a big foreigner team. Like, he'll say that about, like, I think specifically, I think it was the Kpop team. When they were like, there's a bunch of foreigners on that team. And then also just in that, like, when their parents came, that parent day when he had nobody, he's like, but it was also specifically because Ling Chi was crying. And he was like, well, us foreigners, we can't have our parents here. And I'm like, yeah, because they're also, this is specifically the only person getting emotional about it was Ling Chi. I don't know, it just feels, the vibes are off, the vibes are weird, and I don't like the vibes.
There's also the entire show, he just is consistently talking about he does not care about other people, he doesn't like teamwork. That first round, he was just completely going off on how he was above everyone else in the team, and they're not threats to him, and I don't care what parts they have, I just care about me. And, like, all of the, like, mentors and other people in the show are, like, trying to shut him down real fast, because they're like, you cannot be on this show and be completely unwilling to work with other people. Like, you can't be a K-pop idol that way if you're gonna be in a group. Like, go debut as a soloist if you're gonna have that mindset. Like, you shouldn't be here.
The other thing is that you constantly see that if he's in a team with people he deems as worthy, because he goes into Monster that next round, and that's where I thought that the K-Sol redemption arc was gonna come in. But no, it doesn't, because it's just because that team had a lot of very popular members. So he's like, well, I'm in the valley of my peers, and it's because he can't steamroll anybody. And then he gets into Kpop, and he goes backwards again. And then there is the round where he drops to, I believe, 12th place?
Something one of the last eliminations, he drops
really far to 12th place. And he is seething with rage. You can see it in his face. Like, the production points out, was like, K-Sol, you're angry. And at some point during his speech, he just says something like, he's talking, and he gets a thought to, well, I'm here now, and then doesn't finish that thought.
Yep.
Or it's something like, I'll keep work. It's something, he's doing a thought. He has a very ambiguous thought, but, like, wherever that sentence was gonna go was not gonna be good, and he just, you can see everybody waiting for him to finish his sentence, and he does not. He's like, I realize I can't finish, I don't know what to say here, and then they just sort of awkwardly tell him to go up to wherever he's ranked. And it's so weird, and you can see he's angry. And the weird thing is, a lot of the producers and a lot of, specifically the mentors, are kind of laughing, because they're like, yeah, of course he's pissed.
Of course, you're not, like, you do not deserve to be. They're like, you don't deserve this at all.
And when they're picking their teams for their original songs, he's the last person picked for a group, because none of them want to work with him.
Because they're like, he's so hard to deal with. Like, no one wants to deal with him and his attitude. Like,
and then,
he's bad.
At the end of the day, he gets ranked 5th. 5th? Yes, 5th. 5th?
No, I think he's, like, 8th.
9th, sorry.
9th, 8th or 9th,
Sorry, I was confusing him with somebody else, but, like, he's, that last, though, the previous one he was ranked 5th. But he's ranked 9th. And then he says something along the lines of, I never cared about rank. It's like, yes, you did. He's like, I didn't care about rank 1 or rank 12. And I'm like, yes, you did.
Yeah, you did.
Don't lie to yourself. Don't lie to me. Don't lie to me. I've watched this show. You can't just say things like that and expect me to believe you. In what universe have I had any trust in you to believe you to begin with?
The other thing that also is annoying me a lot now is he wants to change his stage name to Soul when there is already an idol with the stage name Soul, and also is apparently he's also styling his hair exactly the way that Soul of P1 Harmony styles his hair. And it's like really not the vibe.
It's so gross.
Because clearly there's already a superior Soul, and it's not you, buddy.
Don't dare do that, you little bitch.
You little shitty man.
Oh my god. And he's just, there's something inherently, and I understand in theory him wanting to be an idol, but like being like, well, I'm so old. There's just something about him being possibly 28 years old and going on this show.
Multiple children.
But also just going on this, like, I understand that, like, if he was 28 and everything else, he would have never been able to get on this show. Probably for a good reason.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And now we have just, once the results came out, people actually looked at who was in this group and they're like, fuck. K-Soul's here?
So many people are about, this is the worst lineup of a group I've ever seen, and almost everyone is because K-Soul's in the group.
The 3 children
like, that's the big
help.
problem.
The 3 children really don't help.
Everyone is like, this lineup sucks because there are 3 children, and mostly because K-Soul is here.
Like, the K-Soul would, I think, specifically, a lot of people are calling for K-Soul to be out of the group, and I agree with them.
So many people are already petitioning him to be removed.
Because
he should be.
But the thing is, there's very little we can do about the 3 children. Like, it is what it is.
I feel like it would be very easy for this company to go dig up this man's real age and say, we figured this out, that's a breach of trust, so he's gonna be removed. And, like, that's a very easy thing that they could do.
People are gonna rag on that company for, like, letting him on the show to begin with without proper documentation. Right.
But also, I feel like this group is and this show is so trashy that I think they want him for the media attention. It's like, I feel like they almost want this, like, shitty person in the group because it gets people talking about him, and, you know, any publicity is good publicity for them. Because clearly, they're not going to be the biggest debut boy group of this year. Like, that's already out of the question. So if they can have anything, they might as well have this, like, this incredibly controversial, shitty person that gets people talking.
I mean, I guess in theory that kind of works out, but at the end of the day, people are actively going to not stand this group because of him.
There are so many people I know who hate this lineup.
I hate this. Honestly, we hate this lineup.
It sucks. Like, this group sucks because it also feels extremely rigged to begin with. Like, there's no way this show wasn't rigged.
But why would you rig K-Soul into a group?
That's the thing. The rigging wasn't even good rigging. It was, like, shitty rigging.
And then at the end, like, I have yet to see a person that's like, no, this lineup, we like it. I saw people being... So we always go back to Boys Planet, but let's compare it to the ZB1 lineup. I knew a lot of people that were very unhappy with the ZB1 lineup, that were like, well, I can't necessarily stand, but like but at the end of the day, I think people are open. I think less people are open to this. Because no one is happy. Everyone is upset.
No one wants this.
Because I think even if K-Soul does have fans, which he probably does, they're probably upset about the 3 children.
Oh, absolutely.
And then everyone else is upset about the K-Soul and the 3 children. And then the people that are fans of the 3 children are, like, upset about everyone is just angry.
Everyone is mad about something. There's not a single person who watched the show and was like, yeah, this is a great lineup. Like, no.
I saw a bunch of people. Yeah, a bunch of people were like, I don't like the ZB1 lineup. How the fuck could you do this without Park Han-bin? How the fuck could you do this without Kaita? How the fuck about anything? But that's just for reasons of voting.
Yep.
This is for reasons of, this group is inherently a bad idea. And also inherently, possibly, the word problematic is used in a loose context very often and has lost all its meaning. But I would say this group is problematic. Would you not?
Definitely. It's so problematic.
Like, I know that problematic is a word that's probably used, like, too often.
But it's like we're pre-debut and we're already in a bad place. Like, it's really not
I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we want to just end talking about just, like, general production decisions.
Yep. A lot of them we've already talked about.
But
with one of them being, the show was definitely rigged, but no one watched this show, so no one gives a shit.
This show definitely, if there was an investigation into the show like there was for Produce Season 2, I think more people would go to jail. More people. It's so obvious, because also, the thing you learn from Produce is that ranks do not shift like goddamn, you cannot tennis ball this. You cannot go up and down like it's a goddamn sports ball game. No.
Right.
You either are consistent or you get out of the top 12 and you stay out. And there's, like, one person that's usually slowly climbing. Like, take Ricky, for example. Ricky was slowly climbing up the ranks as the show went on. Or you have someone like Dowell, who was up in the ranks and then plummeted and was never heard from again. Like, you get things like that. You don't... even Kaita, who was in that top 12 the whole time and then was, I believe, 12th?
Yeah, I think
12th or 11th or something like that. Was out of that top... Was out of there. That's not a huge drop. Like, it's a big drop, but, like, it's almost an understandable... Like, it's
but
fine
also
for
with
finale.
the way that the finale, like,
going...
voting is differently, all of the people with stronger global fan bases suffer a lot that finale.
So there's an understandable thing of why. Then you have this, where Santa ranks 1, and then ranks 29, and then ranks 5, and then ranks 12, and then isn't even in the top 1, isn't even in the top 12.
And we don't get a ranking for everyone below the top 12, so we don't even know where he ranked, and we don't know where he ranked because they fucking just picked whoever the hell they wanted.
They just made the group and then made up some numbers.
Yep. Because these points don't mean anything to me. There's no clear way on how these are calculated or what they mean. Like, it's
and they
terrible.
know that they can get away with it because no one's gonna care enough to look at it. It's boys'
also
fantasy.
Want to talk about how this finale looks like it was filmed in, like, a college auditorium.
Yeah.
Like, it was really, like, not, like...
Yeah,
not very,
it was filmed
like...
on the same stage that they do all of the performances at, which seems bad. It seems like it's the same people there. It's always the same people there. Like, it's the same, like, group of 100 people that keep coming back. And it never seems full. It always looks a little bit empty. Like, a little bit empty. I don't know. It just felt so anticlimactic. Also...
There was nothing special about it at all. No. There was no energy. It was just very nothing.
Like, we went back and saw highlights of that Boys Planet finale. There was so much emotion from everybody. Yeah. From, like, the contestants, from the judges. The judges on this just looked sad. They're like, what the fuck is happening? I know, none of the
judges seemed to be happy with how this was
it's a bad lineup.
Like, it was not good. It's a really bad lineup. Let's be honest.
It's a bad lineup, and they knew it was a bad lineup. There was a point, I think, after, like, K-Soul or somebody was oh no, it was after Sungmin was announced as third. I think they cut to So-yeon.
And Gyu-rae got second.
And, like, it's when everybody's sort of realizing Gyu-rae is second or first, that they cut to, like, So-yeon, and So-yeon's face, I think she actually just goes, what? Or, like, what? Oh my god, or something. And I'm like, I'm with you, girl. I don't know what's happening.
Yep. I don't know what's happening.
I don't like
either.
it, but I'm with you. And then at the end, right when the show ends, I think one of the last things they do is they have each of the mentors say a couple words about this experience. And
they don't have anything really good to say about the debut lineup. They're like, all of you work so hard, and I'm proud of everyone.
And then very specifically,
and to see all of these people in front of us, and, like, how far you've all come. It's very generic statements.
And then a lot of them very specifically say, spend more time talking about, and, like, the ones that didn't make the group, you guys are great. You guys are gonna do great things. And I'm like,
like, don't be too sad. And it's like, they just do not want to acknowledge this group of people at all.
No, not at all. They never say, and I'm excited to see what comes out of this group. No, they don't say any of it.
None.
Like, it's just, you can tell people are upset. You can tell, like, I will say, This is honestly one of the worst pieces of reality television I've ever seen, in the way that there were no storylines established.
No storylines.
Because what story?
No one got any personality. There was nothing.
Like, they tried to make, and I think this might be, I don't know if I want to call it like a direct copy of Halbin, but I think they saw the opportunity and they saw how much people latched onto it, that they like leaned.
They were trying to force a Halbin, yeah.
But they leaned into it so far, because so what happened was, as the show,
they're trying to force a Halbin for these two kids who barely speak to each other over the course of the show.
Don't seem unfriendly, but like the thing with Halbin, and the reason that was such a thing on Boys Planet was that those two were, one, very good friends, and two, it was not a competition. They were just each other's confidants, and they were gumming up. The thing with Halbin felt like they were coming up together. This two seemed like they're coming up against each other. Specifically with Junwan and Sungmin. Because you had Sungmin go on for the whole thing, and like you really know that it was bad production storytelling. Why the fuck was it not Sungmin Junwan at the end?
Right? Because we didn't even get that, because Yurei was in the middle of all
Not for us to bully Yurei, for us to bully the producers that did that to Yurei. But yeah,
my God,
so bad. And then you have just like the fact that they decided to do more. I don't even know what we filled the time with. That none of these kids got we filled it with bullying, because they like half these kids. I think every single kid in this, except for like some of the foreign ones that don't speak great Korean, have said, I don't like to work with this person because X, Y, or Z. Whether that be Yurei, whether that be other children, whether that be Bumjun, whether that be whatever. Like, there's just so much of them not wanting to work with somebody, not because they're like, well, I think they have a different vibe. It's specifically, no, they are difficult to work with. And I'm like, why is that the storyline you're leaning into? You're making these kids look bad. Because, at the very least, why, like, that's a villain edit. Why are you villain editing these kids? That doesn't make me want to like them and to follow the group that they're gonna be in.
Right? Like, you're editing these kids to look awful, but not in the way that you're ever gonna set up a redemption arc or any type of a way. It's like, you're just making them look bad, and, like, that doesn't make me want to like them at all.
I don't know. I just don't.
The show just sucked, man. Like, it was awful.
So bad.
Everything about it was, like, there was not a single good decision made on the production of this show. Like, the entire thing was a disaster from the beginning. Production
just seemed like they stopped caring halfway through, and then just were sort of going off of vibes. But now you just end up in the group with, like, 3 kids, which is a bad idea. K-Soul, who's actively... They realized that they gave personality to K-Soul and, like, Junwan, who they need in this group because he's talented. And then everything else is just noise.
Everyone else is just here. And if you decide you like one of them, like, we're not going to give you anything else about them. So that's on you to figure out who you like.
Lee Hanbin fan has to deal with 3 children.
And a K-Soul.
God damn it. Why are... Junwan, Ling-Chi, run! Run and
away.
Take the kids with you.
I can't believe we have this group for 7 years. Like, I cannot believe that we just have to deal with this for 7 years. Yeah, I'm glad I don't have... Well, I am gonna have to think about them, unfortunately, because K-Soul exists, and I'm sure is gonna attempt to get this group canceled before they even debut, and is already kind of doing that,
has already gotten this group canceled by many. Like, I know multiple people that are like,
the petitions for getting him out of the group already exist. Like, as soon as he was announced in this group, people were like, he needs to get kicked. Like, he can't be here.
We don't get that many 11-member groups. Let's keep that.
Honestly, maybe 12 was a mistake.
12
but, like,
was really a mistake.
Awful.
But yeah, no, I think 11 might be a good time. That does mean the ratio of children is now bigger, but also means that there's no children in the group with a 28-year-old man.
Yep.
Potato.
Because who knows how old K-Soul actually is.
I saw someone on TikTok essentially just make the joke of, damn, K-Soul's such an idol so bad he had to be born 3 times.
Born 3 times? Yeah, I saw that one too.
I'm like, yeah, fair enough. Born.
Yep.
By his logic, he's
what an icon to have to be born 3 times.
4 possibly.
Wild.
If
possibly
if
4
the
times.
1995 date is correct 4 times.
Born 4 times.
Wild. That means
wild
that
shit,
he
honestly.
was trying to fake his birthday since Super Idol. Which was like when 5 years ago.
A long time ago.
What the fuck?
Wild.
It just makes no sense to me. Also, I want to see his passport. I'm not one of those people usually, but for this situation, there's kids involved, man. You gotta protect them kids.
Season 2 of Super Idol aired in 2016.
So he's been faking his...
3 aired in 2017, so it's like, it's been a while for him.
Yeah.
He's been faking his age for years.
For years. How has that not been cleared up? How have they not had to make a statement?
The fact that we did not fact check it even a little bit is also what's baffling to me. That they truly do not care.
Like, people have to make statements addressing whether or not they I don't know, when they get into fender benders, or when they what is other stupid statements they make? Whether or not they, actively, play online video games or some shit, or
if they're, friends with certain problematic people. Or maybe not even, but just, even, slightly associated
people
with a
make apology statements when they have to go on hiatus because they got an injury. And K-Soul does not have to make a statement about his age.
And you're telling me we can't clear up how old this man is?
Where is his statement?
Hello?
I hate it.
There
are so many unnecessary statements.
They're gonna make shit music because they don't have, exceptionally talented people in this group. Sorry to the members of this group, but, there's not a lot here.
Production company here, because what do you do with a member that's 28 and a member that's 13? What?
Right? It's what is going on?
What do you do with that?
What do you do?
You don't do anything, apparently. You just keep going.
Just keep going like nothing's wrong. Okay, cool.
I don't know, man.
I am not looking forward to this group to debut and then exist for 7 years. So
I am not either. I don't understand. This group is gonna...
But this is the reality we live in.
This is the life we live. This is the industry we are in. This is the industry we've chosen to podcast about.
I know. And unfortunately, because we always podcast too many of the male survival shows, we are.
Here's the thing.
I
think we are watching a train wreck happening in front of our eyes. Because there's groups 100%. That are known as K-pop train wrecks.
This is going to be one of them, for sure.
I have a feeling is going to be one of them. Because, dear God,
I can't wait to hear nothing except controversies come out of this group. Because I guarantee you it'll happen.
At best, mediocre music.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that's also, we didn't even mention the fact that they called this group Fantasy Boys.
Yeah, we literally just named the group the name of the show. Which means we cannot make another season of this show. Which, honestly, I think by the end of the show, they're like, this was a mistake. We can't do this again. Maybe they did realize, we can't make this show again.
Maybe we're just done, period.
Well,
I'm tired. I want to go watch the Heavenly Idol.
I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, we're going to go watch the Heavenly Idol, and you'll hear about that, and it'll be more fun.
You'll hear about that, the week,
I think next week.
You'll hear about that next week.
Yeah, literally next week.
We are very excited. That show, we're having too much fun with that show.
Way more fun than we are with this show. Because not spoilers, but we said we would watch the show after Fantasy Boys is done. And so now Fantasy Boys is done, and we're watching Heavenly Idol, having a much better time.
We're having a great time here. The other thing I just want to point out, we will not be doing any episodes on Are You Next, the Hybe girl group.
No. We do not watch the female survival shows.
We do not watch the female survival shows.
Also because it is around, I guess, the time of year for that. So we normally do the 2023 boy group debut episode at June. We have decided to push that to December this year. Mm-hmm. Number one, because ZB1 debuts in July.
So we need to at least wait for that.
Also, because we've always done it in... We only did it in June because we ended up doing 2 of that episode the first year we did this podcast because so many boy groups debuted. Yeah. But then groups stopped debuting in the second half of the year. But because we did it in June, we would just miss talking about any groups that debuted July through December.
Yeah.
which is not the best, so we're just gonna do this year's episode in December, so you're gonna get all the boy groups from the entire year.
We get to talk about every single one of them instead of just
which means we'll probably revisit the fantasy boys, because they will probably be debuted by then, and that'll be a time. But you know,
that's the episode where
we'll see.
We'll have
more thoughts on them then. I'm sure
that's the day we get to talk about both of them, both ZB1
and Fantasy Boys next to each other.
Even though we did that this whole episode,
because clearly we can't stop thinking about Boys Planet.
everything I want is just Boys Planet. They take up all of that show. Ended months ago, and still takes up all of my mental real estate.
I know, but it's so good. I had so much fun with that show in comparison to whatever the fuck Fantasy Boys was. So.
And then at some point we just started comparing both shows while watching Fantasy Boys.
We would oftentimes talk about Boys Planet while watching Fantasy Boys, but you know, similar to what we did with Peak Time, we also did that in Fantasy Boys, so, you know.
I think it's where we came to the realization that Ricky is the backbone of that group, and we will get more into that. We'll get more into that when we actually do that full episode. But
Ricky is absolutely necessary for that group.
Backbone of that group.
Absolutely.
But not in the way you think, because he's not, like, musically the backbone of that group. I think his personality is needed.
But he is absolutely required in that group.
And I have more opinions about goddamn Gyuvin than I do about every single member of the Fantasy Boys combined.
I know.
No hate to Gyuvin, I actually love Gyuvin.
We love Gyuvin now.
But I have so many thoughts.
But anyways, that has been Fantasy Boys, a real headache of a show to get through.
Absolutely.
We are available on all major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We also have a YouTube channel where we post all of our episodes, sometimes clip videos, sometimes not clip videos. Depends how we're feeling, really.
Yep.
And we will see you in the next episode where we're probably talking about Heavenly Idol, so have fun with that.
Bye.
Bye.